Hi there, country music fans, and welcome back to the Country Music Time Machine. This is Kevin, and right now we're going to try to answer the question, what happened to country music? I planned this episode for well over a year now. Very hard to look at the current state of country music. I truly hope that we can keep an open mind about this subject and stay calm, of course. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about me. What makes me an expert at this? Well, I'm not really an expert, but a few factors to think about when I'm talking about this and explaining this. Number one, I love country music. That's probably the most important thing. I love it with all my heart. Number two, my first real job, way back in 1982, 14 years old, I worked at a radio station across the street from my high school. So I started working in mainly country radio very early on. And that was my first career, and I worked in country radio at various radio stations across the Southeast, including some of the biggest ones in Nashville. WSIX, the Big 98, was one of those. So through those years, especially in the 80s and 90s, I had a lot of exposure to country music and country music artists, not to mention country music radio. Now, automatically, you may assume this episode is a negative one, but that's not necessarily true. I'm going to try my best to cover what has happened to country music over the many years, as we do here on the Country Music Time Machine, as we roll through the decades of country music history, and how that historical perspective connects us to what is happening in country music today. Country music is an ever-changing type of music. There is no doubt that country music that was popular way back in the early 1900s to the 1960s sounds a heck of a lot different than the country music we are listening to today. So in this episode, we'll try to answer these important questions. Number one, what is country music? That's a hard one. Number two, how has country music changed over the years? Number three, are there hit songs in country music history that were not considered country songs by some? Number four, are country music fans and the country music industry racist? Comes up a lot. We're going to talk about that. And the final question, has country music changed too much? As I've said, my goal in this episode is to take an objective and fair look at these tough questions. Unlike those news channels we watch today, I will try my best to show both sides in this ongoing controversy and tie in that historical perspective of how country music has changed over the years. As always, your thoughts and comments are more than welcome. We read them all. It's one of the most entertaining parts of doing this Country Music Time Machine channel. First off, and possibly the hardest question to answer, is what is country music? Country music's rise started in the early 1920s. In general, at least at the beginning, country music was the ballads, folk songs, and popular songs of the English, Scots, and Irish settlers of the Appalachian Mountains and other parts of the South. But often forgotten is the African influence in country music, as the enslaved Africans and their descendants in North America and the Caribbean were picking that banjo. The white folks heard it, they loved it, and it was a critical part of that early country music sound. But the lyrics of country music are the critical part. Traditional country music focuses on the stories of the life of normal, everyday, and mostly rural working folks. Historically, country music has never been about rich people and about money. That leads us to our next question. How has country music changed over the years? A bunch. Let's start off by hearing a little of one, if not the first country commercial songs. Here is a little of Little Log Cabin in the Lane by Fiddlin' John Carson.
Every year I'm singing in the cane, but the only friend that's left here is that good old dog of mine and the little old log cabin in the lane.
And now let's do a whole 360 here. Here's a little bit of the controversial country hit from Beyonce, Texas Hold'em.
This ain't Texas, ain't no Hold'em, so lay your cards down, 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 down. So park your Lexus and throw your keys up, stick slow dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it to the floor now. Woo!
Now, just so your mind can wrap around this, now let's hear them back to back.
But the only friend that's left here is that good old dog of mine and the little old log cabin in the lane.
And I'll be damned if I can't slow dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it to the floor now. Woo!
That is over 100 years of country music history in 2 songs. And we will discuss more about Beyonce a little bit later because it's very important. Country music has often changed over the years, even from the very beginning. The first country recordings were in the 20s from folks like Fiddlin' John Carson and Jimmy Rogers, but the style started to change. In the 1930s, it was the singing cowboys with great music from folks like Gene Autry and old Roy Rogers. In the 1940s, it morphed into country honky-tonk from folks like Ernest Tubb, Kitty Wells, and the one and only Hank Williams. But the 1940s, country possibly paved the way for the future rock sound. Some folks think that the actual first rock and roll song was Move It On Over, recorded in 1947 by Hank Williams. Others say that the first real rock song was Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock. Rock Around the Clock features a 12-bar blues arrangement with a melody starting with 3 repetitions of an ascending arpeggio of the tonic chord. Now, all right, for you non-musical geniuses out there, that is nearly a copy. Rock Around the Clock is nearly a copy of Hank Williams' arrangement on Move It On Over. So to take it even more basic, Rock Around the Clock musically is nearly a copy of the 1947 Hank Williams song. So, is Hank Williams really the father of rock music? Let me know what you think about that one. It's controversial, I know. Let me know what you think about it. Pop your comments down below. But this type of music from the 40s and 50s was labeled hillbilly music. The name's changed over the years, and that's how they labeled it on the Billboard chart anyway. In the 1950s and the 1960s, with the rise of the rock sound, the country music scene started to change in Nashville, and it became smoother and more, can we say, polished, as Patsy Cline and Jim Reeves were the big ones from the era with the more polished sound. But by the 1960s, things started to change once again, and you thought it was only changing now. It's always changed. Country artists were bucking against that smooth Nashville sound. Bucking. Good word. We got the Bakersfield sound from Buck Owens in his attempt to bring back a little more passion and humanity into country music. And of course, Johnny Cash released music in the 1950s, but started the huge genre of outlaw country with his big hits in the 60s. Johnny may have been making outlaw country, but was also reconnecting to the original country music with his great songs influenced by the Carter family. In the 1970s and 80s, multiple country songs crossed over into the pop charts. Was this an example of country songs so great that pop music fans loved them, or were these just big hits, actually pop songs with a touch of country twang? So that leads us to our next question. Are there hit songs in country music that were not considered country songs? The answer to that question is usually a big yes. It has happened in every decade of country music, but here are some of the more controversial ones. If You Love Me, Let Me Know by Olivia Newton-John back in 74. John Denver, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, 1975. Dolly Parton, 9 to 5, 1980. And Taylor Swift, Love Story, 2008. And then it started to change even more. Florida Georgia Line featuring Nelly, Cruise remix from 2012. And we'll never forget the controversy caused by Old Town Road with Lil Nas X featuring Billy Ray Cyrus. Well, those last 2 songs from Florida Georgia Line and Lil Nas X have ushered in a time where it is very hard to differentiate a country song from a pop song or even a hip-hop song. Strangely enough, it also happened back in the 50s. We can thank Elvis for that, for his rockin' country sound. The next question we're going to cover is this. Are country music fans and the country music business racist? It is a tough one, and my answer to this one is yes and no. It depends quite often on the era of country music we're talking about and the specific situation. History is very clear that in the early era of country music, racism did play a role. Let's go back to the 1920s. The Carter family, considered the first family of country music, but do you know that an African American by the name of Leslie Riddle was a key part of their success and the rise of country music? He was. Riddle was called the human tape recorder, with his ability to memorize and develop melodies, while A.P. Carter worked on the lyrics. Riddle's guitar stylings were used on many family songs from the Carters. Historically, Riddle has received very little credit for his important impact on the true roots of country music. But at the beginning, country music was mainly marketed to poor white folks. While the white country singers were using the banjo and getting help from multiple talented black musicians, the black artists were seldom credited or even mentioned. So yes, the origin of country music excluded black artists. Many formats, not only country music, did not give credit to important black artists. Now let's talk about country legend Charley Pride. Starting in 1969, he had 8 number-1 country songs. But when RCA first sent out his music to radio stations, they did not include a publicity photo, as they knew that most radio stations would refuse to play him. The music did speak for itself, however, and Charley Pride became the second black member of the Grand Ole Opry behind DeFord Bailey. But many decades passed before Darius Rucker broke through and had his smash country hits. And that brings us to talk about Beyonce. Beyonce is super talented and a native of Houston, Texas, but she's also a black female artist. Until lately, very few blacks, let alone black female artists, have had much success in country music. She has broken the mold when she released 2 country songs in 2024. Texas Hold'em became the first song by a female black artist to top the Billboard Country chart, but there's something very important to point out here. There are 2 Billboard Country charts. One is for what is being played only on the radio airplay chart, and one is for sales, airplay from all radio formats, and streaming data. Beyonce reached number 1 on the combined chart, not just the country radio airplay chart. The question is now, is this because of racism? I cannot speak for all radio program directors or the other folks that decide radio airplay, but racism may be a component of this, but also you must know that radio has always been reluctant to play any female artist. Female fans are an important part of country music. There is not enough data available that studies what female country fans want to hear. But if you attend concerts from the big male performers, the big part of the audience are not males. It is women. They love these male performers. I worked in country radio for many years, and this was always the case even back then. But it does not help when some of the major country radio stations, including those in Nashville, repeat the same songs and the same artist constantly. Listening to WSIX in Nashville last week, I heard a Morgan Wallen song almost every 30 minutes. Now, this type of airplay does not give room for other artists when the same songs and the same artist are being played constantly. Not enough country artists are getting the exposure they deserve. And this, in most cases, has nothing to do with gender or race. But Beyonce is not exactly reaching out to core country music fans. Beyonce has the talent to release a more traditional country song, but she has decided not to take that route. And this comment she made does not help that. She said this about her new album: "This ain't a country album. This is a Beyonce album." Now that doesn't help a lot, but Texas Hold'em is on the way to becoming the viral country line dance song of the year with millions of views across multiple platforms. And therein lies the problem. The country music industry and country music fans are very, very protective of its product. And many radio stations not playing her song may have nothing to do with her race, but the song itself is not considered by some to fit the country format. But sadly, there are many very talented male and female black country artists that do not get the airplay they deserve, even when their music is much closer to traditional country music than what Beyoncé is singing. And finally, the final question. Has country music changed too much? The answer to this one is a big yes, but it has always been that way. Over more than 100 years of country music history, the only constant has been the change. Nashville record executives have a duty to help produce music that makes people money. In the current era, that money is with the younger generation, and the music being produced and played constantly on the radio is focused on them. I had the honor of working with Alan Jackson through my radio station days back in the 90s. This is what the great Alan Jackson said a few years ago in an interview with Hits Daily Double. He said, "Country music is gone, and it's not coming back." Listening to country radio today, some of us do feel the same as Alan, but I am so sorry, Alan. I do not agree with you on that one. There is no doubt that the country music industry's attempt to be more diverse has caused less traditional country songs to be heard. I don't think country music is dead, or I don't think country music is gone. Personally, my favorite type of country music is the traditional music from folks like Alan Jackson, Reba McEntire, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, and George Jones, many more. The death of country music has been declared multiple times by multiple people over many years. History tells us they were all wrong. What is popular in country music is like ocean tides. There are low ones and there are high ones. And every once in a while there's a huge tsunami that hits that stirs up the landscape. But country music has never died, and hopefully it never will. Thanks to the digital media like YouTube, nobody needs a big record company for people to hear their music. This current country sound may seem strange at times, even to my aged ears, but country music is in our hands, our hearts, and of course our music. Country music has stood the test of time. On this channel, the Country Music Time Machine, our most popular decade by far is the 1950s. These videos have thousands and thousands of views. Now, is that just nostalgia, or are people missing that more traditional country sound? Think about it. Before I go, here are some more words of wisdom from the great Alan Jackson. He said this at the Country Music Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2017.
I just hope that there's going to be some young people coming along that will really care as much about it as I have and try to keep it alive. It's going to be hard today. You know, you won't hear it on the radio probably anymore, but it's still a lot of people out there, young and old, that want to hear what I call real country music.
And that is all for the Country Music Time Machine. If you like what we do, like us, leave your comments down below, and please subscribe for more good stuff. This is Kevin. We'll see you next time.
I think that's all I'm going to say.